a grounded perspective on how cities are shaped through collaboration, responsibility, and collective action. We welcome you, sir, to Neve Academy. Thank you for giving your valuable time to us.
Hi, good morning, everybody. So tell me, as you came into school today, what struck you about the city? Tell me what you like about Bangalore. What is it that you like? Anybody? I want some volunteers, or I'm going to call some people out. So what do you go for it? Pardon?
It's been raining for the last 2 days.
So you like the fact that it's been raining. Did you notice that the raining also caused some flooding?
Yeah, that's it.
Did that disturb you that there was parts of the city that got flooded?
Yeah, especially the roads, yeah.
Did your area anybody's area got flooded during the rain last week? Well, at least 4, okay. So you like the fact that the rain has brought the temperature down. But do you worry why the temperature is going up? Yeah.
I like the greenery everywhere, like on all sides of the roads, there's always trees.
So you like the green Bangalore. Over time, do you feel it has been increasing or decreasing?
Decreasing.
And why do you think that is happening?
Development.
Is development a good thing or a bad thing?
It's good.
Okay, so that means you're ready to lose some trees. Or can we have development without losing trees?
Yeah, that would be ideal.
Ideal. Anybody else? What do you like about Bangalore? Come on, there are mics around.
Anybody?
I need to hear from you.
It might be a bit unorthodox, but I kind of like the heritage of Bangalore and how the city has evolved from a pensioner's paradise to a major IT hub renowned globally.
So you have liked the change that has happened in Bangalore, which is great because a lot of people keep thinking about the good old days. You know, people with white hair like me, if you meet, they will say, in Bangalore in those days was so much nicer. But it's good to see someone like you say that the change is something that's been good for all of us. Anyone else? Yeah. RCB is the best thing about Bangalore.
Sporting culture, mainly.
Okay, so tell me about sporting culture. So what aspect about Bangalore sporting culture have you noticed?
I can say people can get a bit rowdy during the yeah, like the stampede last year. So.
But that's not anyway. On sporting culture, I want to know how many of you know about the Dravid Padukone Sports Academy in the city. Oh, that's great. All of you, many of you have been there. Oh, you've been there, so that makes sense. That for example, is a great example of our sporting culture. You have Mahesh Bhupati's tennis academy. How many of you have heard of Mahesh Bhupati, tennis player? He has a tennis academy. So yes, there is a sporting culture. And why do you think that incident in KSCA after RCB won happened? Because you mentioned about the stampede. You want to say, yeah, go for it.
A lack of plan. I would say a lack of planning, lack of organization, and inefficiency.
So if you were in charge of the city on that day, you know RCB has won the previous night. You know thousands and thousands of people are going to come to think. How would you have dealt with the issue the next day when Kohli and team landed? What would you think of doing? Any ideas?
Easier said than done, but limit the amount of seats. Which it's difficult, but it's something that needs to be done. I'm not going to say it's going to be easy. Prevent the crowd from moving too fast. Have someone to encourage the crowd to move slower. And beyond that, there's not much.
Good thinking, good thoughts. But the key thing, something to think about, that, you know, the capacity of the KSCA stadium is about 35,000. And a normal IPL match, they sell tickets which cost from 2,000 rupees to 50,000 rupees. And on such days with tickets, the stadium gets full and people are outside the stadium trying to get in, on a day when people sell tickets, what do you think will happen when you have won the trophy and you are saying it is free entry into the stadium? With ticket entry, you have a problem. Can you just imagine the nature of the problem if you just tell people after you won a game? So something to think about. Does it make more sense to have the people engage with the cricketers in the open streets instead of trying to get them into a closed stadium? So for example, if you see overseas, you have a ticket parade from the time they land. There's a bus and a whole lot of people are walking with the bus. People are seeing the bus as it goes into the city. So something to think about in planning. Would it have been better to do it in the open so that there's less chance of a stampede than trying to push people into a 35,000 stadium free of charge? Something to think about. Anybody else wants to go?
Anyone? Come on.
Okay. Now tell me something about Bangalore. As you came into town today, came into the school today, something that upset you about the city. I'm sure you love the traffic, so I don't want a traffic answer. You love spending time in the bus.
When I came to school, I crossed the Bengaluru lake, and what upset me was that the lake didn't even look like a lake. Like when you go from here, there are like trucks moving all across the place, and it barely looks like a water body. So that.
Interesting point. In fact, right now there is a I'm told the 8th standard students are working something on Bengaluru Lake. Is that right, Sai? That's what you mentioned, that they're going to do a project on Bengaluru. Right now in Bengaluru Lake, there is work happening to improve the lake. But do you know a historical fact about Bengaluru Lake of the 1930s and 1940s? Check on the net, if you're allowed to get onto the net. A plane, I have a loud voice, no problem. A plane has landed in Bengaluru Lake. You understand, there was a time almost about 70, 80 years ago where planes used to land in Bengaluru Lake. Today, you can't even imagine that such a thing was possible. And we will come back to Bengaluru Lake and how potentially it can be a lake of hope where we can rectify the city. Two others put up their hand. Yes. Listen.
I don't like the fact that there's lots of garbage just like lying around and like potholes everywhere.
So garbage is a problem, potholes is a problem. Do you have a sense as to, for example, I saw a black spot as I came through the wind tunnel road. As you take that turn, there's a whole lot of, that's what's called a black spot. There's a lot of waste thrown. Have you given some thought about why this waste happens?
Thought about why all of it collects into one place because the area I live also there are like multiple black spots. And what I've noticed is that even after like the government or someone comes to clean it, people are they're just so used to throwing over there that it just collects all over again. So when one person starts throwing trash in a designated area, everyone else also does. And so the pile just builds up and becomes bigger and bigger.
So civic behavior,
Yeah.
somebody starts it and that is part of the problem. And the way we deal with our garbage, have you noticed something that is wrong about it?
A lot of people burn it.
Burning is obviously bad and gets very toxic. Anything else about segregating waste? Have you noticed anything? Have you have a view on that? I'll come to you. On garbage you want to talk about, right? I'll come to you.
Yeah, I have noticed that segregation often becomes a problem. Especially I know people who try to do it, but then at the end it all just piles up in one
Got it.
land.
And why does potholes happen? Why do potholes happen?
The roads are just bad, they don't get fixed over time.
And who is to blame for the potholes? BBMP. Okay, now it's the Greater Bangalore Authority, which is also had a role in creating that. Yeah, you were going to say something about garbage.
Bangalore does not currently have the facilities for waste segregation. even for plastic, there are so many methods such as pyrolysis and all, in which you can actually convert plastic back into a fuel source directly to use, and it's relatively cheap in comparison to the cost, and the payback rates are also good. But we have like perhaps a very few segregation plants, if not one or two.
Good points. We'll come back to garbage. We will come back to garbage. We will come back to pothole. We will come back to traffic for sure. What else? Yeah.
This is actually a bit odd, but I just like the presence of so many cows in the city because it's bad for the humans and it's bad for the cows. They cause traffic, everyone knows that, but they also end up eating the garbage, which is bad for them, bad for us.
Because they're eating plastic and.
So all of that is very problematic.
So you have a problem with too many cows on the roads.
And animals in general, like it's harmful for them and harmful for us.
That's true, but we also have a cow protection policy which makes them. Lots of people actually, once a cow stops being an economic value to the owner, they tend to leave the cow loose to fend literally for itself. So there's a complicated problem out there, but we could even get back to that. Somebody else raised their hand. Anybody? Somebody from the back bench. People who choose the back bench need to be picked up for. You want to ask one more? While the mic goes there, one more.
Roads and metro. Can I say that?
So what do you want to say about the metro?
It's something that has a lot of potential, as in if metro and roads were completely constructed in Bangalore, a large amount of things could be done. But it's things that are a work in progress. For example, take the airport metro for instance. It will reduce the travel time a lot. There's a joke about how long it took that one person dropped her friend off at the airport and she reached Abu Dhabi before the person even reached her home.
Back home.
And it's just lost potential. That's a sad thing about it.
Yeah, somebody there? Yeah.
I can speak.
No, use the mic.
A problem that I see is the organization of public transport, because if you see a bus stop or any pickup spot, if you're using any public transport, it's all over the place. It's completely messed up. Buses will park in the middle of the road. They go from one side to the other. If you see any other public transport, you see so much crowd. It causes traffic problems for everybody. So yeah.
So you're talking about the behavior about how the bus drives and where they park. But is public transport a good thing or a bad thing?
It's a good thing.
And what you would like to see is more orderly public transport. Now, how many of you have gone abroad for holidays and the like? So over half the crowd. What is it that has struck you about something that you've seen overseas that you wonder that why can't I see that in Bangalore? Yeah.
In other cities, I feel like the streets are a lot less polluted with trash, and it seems a bit more. There are like trash cans everywhere, which makes the experience more enjoyable in places like Barcelona and Paris. And I want to see that in Bangalore soon. But in my neighborhood, I have seen efforts being taken to sort of clean up the streets, but it's still not enough.
And in your neighborhood, the efforts were made by the community or by the corporation?
By the community.
By the community. And can you just explain what the community did to improve the area?
So in certain places where there's a lot of trash, like there's been trash dumps, they've put up signs saying don't put here, and then they're trying to put more trash cans around, but it's not been very effective so far.
Are you aware of a city that has 0 trash cans and it is so neat that even if you walked barefoot, your leg wouldn't really get dirty? Are you aware of a city like that? Tokyo. So Tokyo, for instance, has no trash cans. It has one of the largest population in a city in the world, has 0 trash can. So anybody want to guess as to why is Tokyo the way it is?
So like they don't let you like throw trash in public at all. You literally, if you have trash, you have to fold it, you have to keep it in a bag, and you can deposit in your hotel. Even if you spill anything in a train, in a metro, in public you're fined heavily. So you have to take it in a plastic bag and deposit it in your hotel. So
That's right.
that's one of the methods they're using, which has been proved to be very effective.
Yes, then also the other thing about Tokyo, which is the most difficult thing to replicate, is really the culture. You know, people are trained from a very, very young age to basically be responsible for the larger community. And you know, you in Tokyo, you cannot even pick up a sandwich at one outlet and walk and eat the sandwich. You got to eat it where you bought it and then leave. So you're right. I mean, that's just a. So you spoke about visible trash, and we will come back to the garbage issue. Yeah.
I also feel that on the general organization of different cities. I also feel that the general organization of cities abroad is in fact a little better compared to Bangalore. For example, if you think about it, I went to the US recently, a couple years ago, let's say, I went to Maryland, and in Maryland, everything is.
So use the mic.
Yeah. So we went to US a couple of years ago, and something that I noticed of that is everything is very organized. If you think about it, I don't think trash is the main problem, because that's a more of a civic problem that we have established, correct? So I feel organization is something that's lacking in Bangalore compared to abroad cities, and I think that's mainly due to the overall atmosphere and the attitude people have towards the city and how they're looking at it.
And also, when you say organization, I'm assuming you're meaning in terms of how government delivers. Who do you think is in charge of the city? Who's in charge of that? Who goes to sleep at night in Bangalore thinking that this is my problem to solve?
Yeah, I think very few people.
Can you name even one person who you think might be thinking about Bangalore as they sleep every night?
No, I don't.
You're not able to come up with a single thought out there. That's part of the problem for sure. Yeah, use my mic.
So one thing is that one difference between Bangalore and other foreign cities is that the people over there, they have the civic sense and they're trained in a way that, for example, those people understand that even if they throw, it's their city. But in Bangalore, for example, if you see the sides of roads in slum areas, or if you see like in gullies, you can see that they just throw trash around because they know that anyways it will be cleaned up, so why throw it? So the thing is that there's training been done at a very early childhood in other cities, but in Bangalore it's not been done, so it's been just trash.
So I'd like to think that Neve children will be definitely more responsible than others. But let me ask you something. Do you think our metro is clean and neat? How many of you have gone in the metro? Quite a bit. Do you feel our metro represents what cleanliness and neatness could be? Partially. So does part of the answer lie in replicating what we have done in the metro in other places?
So,
yeah.
I've been on the metro a couple of times, and I've also been to Singapore, and I've experienced the metro over there. And I would say that there is much difference between how clean and how people respond to the metro. But I don't think that in terms of cleanliness, Bangalore is doing much worse than some of the other cities in how clean the metro is.
So the metro is fine, but the rest of the city you still have a problem on cleanliness.
Yeah. Also because metro is certainly a lot more newer than some of the other areas of Bangalore.
Is it possible that citizens have a greater pride in the metro and don't have similar pride in some of the other assets? Is it possible?
Yeah.
That could be partly the thing. Yeah.
Another difference between foreign countries and Bangalore is the sidewalks, right? So in Bangalore, you can't really walk on the sidewalks because there technically is no sidewalk. If you want to just go walk down to your metro station, you fear being run over by a car or a bus. Whereas in cities like Tokyo or London, there are proper designated sidewalks where people respect the fact that people are walking there and give way.
Correct. So basically pedestrian sidewalks is a big part of the problem. And then, is there any part of Bangalore where you have seen some sidewalks which are worthy of mention? So for example, in the context of Bangalore, can you remember any place where you have seen decent footpaths? St. Mark's Road?
St. Mark's Road and Church Street.
Yeah, Residency Road, maybe. Okay, there's a story behind how that happened. I was involved in making that happen. I'll share how that happened. Any others? Yeah.
I think when I was really young, I went to see safe riding the metro back at like 2 in the morning because you have great metro connectivity and also it's much safer because I think they're taught at a young age to be respectful to every single person. And I don't know if that's really the same in Bangalore because even riding the metro at 10 a.m. sometimes you need to be on the lookout constantly, even like if you're like completely alone. Like you need to constantly be aware of your surroundings. Whereas in Singapore you can ride the metro without any concern even at like 3 a.m. in the night.
That's true. And also in Singapore, I think a woman can walk home at 3 a.m. in the night safely. The same cannot be said for Indian cities. And the solution for that, of course, is hugely complex. But the point is valid. Yeah.
I think one of the main problems is the economic disparity between the middle class and the elites. We see that the middle class and the lower middle class is most of Bangalore, and we can also see that there are so many people who are wealthy. As if you go on the road, you can see a lot of garbage on the side. You can see beggars, but you can also see a lot of cars like Range Rovers and BMWs. So,
Do you feel that the rich behave more responsibly than the poor?
I feel like it's mainly due to them living in safer communities.
Then do you believe they behave more responsibly in the city?
Mostly.
Have you read about accidents of people driving Lamborghini and other stuff on the road?
I mean, it's like a minor fraction of the irresponsibilities which happen.
Who do you think jumps traffic signals?
A lot of people.
You think poor people are in cars?
No, not always, but any middle class family can easily take a car on an EMI.
Okay. Next. There are some contrary views coming from the group. Somebody there raised their hand. A few more questions and then I will start taking subject by subject. Yeah. You'll have to,
I wanted also to connect to the point about organization. It's not only in like foreign countries. Like if you compare Bangalore to like Delhi NCR region, especially the newer developing areas, that's very well organized. But Bangalore, in comparison, it's like there's no future planning. It's just like right now we're building what we can. We don't care what's happening ahead.
Good point.
And as for your point about like, do you think people get like rich people are like, how do they act better? I don't think they do because there's like that popular saying that you get the money but you don't necessarily get the class that comes with it.
Good point.
So,
I belong to that school of thought. The other thing in terms of, somebody here raised their hand. Here? This, on this, out here.
So, my point was related. My point was related to Sahitis. So it was about how in some areas the development is way more in other areas. If you go to like Amsterdam, it's developed everywhere equally. But like you see, they keep fixing the potholes on like MG Road and like Church Street. But then if you come to like Malleshwaram, they never fix the potholes over there. It's about like where the development occurs.
So it's uneven. Certain areas get preferential treatment, other areas don't get preferential treatment. Incidentally, to your master planning question, who do you think plans for Bangalore? Do you think there's a chief town planner? You're not sure. Well, there is a chief town planner that exists.
It's a good thing to also ask them who do they think plans for New York?
Come.
Who do you think plans
Who do you think plans for New York? Who's in charge of New York or who's in charge of London?
This everybody knows, huh? New York, who's in charge?
Who's in charge? I'm sure you know his name also, the latest mayor. Mamdani. Everybody knows Mamdani. Okay, here we haven't had elections. But when we have had elections, would you know who the last mayor of Bangalore was? Okay, linked to that, let me ask you another question. I'm going to throw a set of names. And you tell me what do you think is common among them, okay? A set of names. And if you haven't heard of the name, tell me you haven't heard of the name. Jawaharlal Nehru, Rajaji, Subhash Chandra Bose, Sardar Patel, Rajendra Prasad. I've thrown 5 names at you. Can you tell me something that is common about these 5 names? Which? Initiative, okay, but what? They were leaders in the national movement, agreed? I don't need to. Tell me something that was common about these 5 people. Yeah.
They all promoted nationalism.
They did nationalism. There was something more fundamental about where did they come from? I mean, they were kids at one time, they were middle-aged at another time, then they became these big leaders that we all read about. How did they get there? How did they get to where they managed to do what they did for the country? Nationalism. All of them were city leaders. Rajaji in Salem was in the city council. Nehru in Allahabad. Bose in Calcutta. Sardar Patel in Surat. And Rajendra Prasad, I think, in Baroda or Ahmedabad. All of them were city leaders. And from city leaders, they went into national politics. So their path into national politics started at the town level. Those days it was mainly more called towns than cities. But what is the situation that we have today? We have, as Kavita was mentioning, who is in charge is a fundamental problem. So here I just want to mention one thing. I'm sure you all read about the Indian Constitution. You know there's something called the center. Yes? There's something called the state, the second tier of government. The fundamental problem when it comes to our cities being dysfunctional or not working or not knowing who's in charge actually goes back to a constitutional defect at birth. When the constitution was drawn up in 1951, there was a clear tier called the central government, the central tier, where we have Prime Minister Modi, his cabinet, the Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha. There's a very clear clarity out there. At the second level, we had the state government. The state government was basically, for example, who's the CM of Bangalore? Who might become the CM of Bangalore? Anybody following the news? He's hoping that somebody in Delhi hears that name. So we have the second tier of state government. So we come under Karnataka. Even that is well defined. There is Mr. Siddaramaiah, who is the chief minister. He has a cabinet. There are MLAs in the legislative assembly, their legislative council. There's a clear second tier. Unfortunately, when it came to the third tier of local government, cities like Bangalore, Bombay, or even rural areas, when it came to the third tier, they unfortunately did not define the third tier. They just said, we will have local bodies under the state government. So the city of Bangalore, through that, got attached to the second tier of state government. So this really was very unfortunate, particularly given the names that I mentioned. All of them cut their teeth in local government before they went into national. But they were courageous enough to say, each person will have one vote, whether you're literate, illiterate, it doesn't matter. One person, one vote. But when it came to the third tier of government, they were not confident that the third tier of government could manage itself. And that's the price that we are paying today. That because we don't have the third tier of government clearly defined, and the third tier is linked to the second tier, which is not willing to let go of its powers, is one of the key reasons of why we don't have clarity as to who is in charge of the city. Okay, any questions related to this governance tiers? Anybody has a contrarian view? Has anybody? Okay, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I think we learned this during our LJ preparation as well, but the funding that the Tier 3 gets is significantly lower compared to the center and the state. So how does that affect like the city planning? Does that change how you approach problems? Is there like a budget constraint?
There definitely is a budget constraint. And for example, if you take a state like Karnataka, because we have the 5 guarantee scheme, which the people promised as part of getting elected, the money that is available for a city like Bangalore is distinctly lower than what it should be. Our main income source in our city of Bangalore for the corporation is something called the property tax. So all of us, I mean, we have properties, you have houses, you have offices, you have colleges, whatever. You pay property tax, that's a significant source of revenue. And that by no means is enough to run the city. So you need state support, and the state has multiple requirements which are competing demands. Bangalore, for example, roughly half the state's GDP, 50% of the state's GDP is coming from Bangalore. What Bangalore gets back in return is less than 10% of what it gives. So basically, you have a disparity in, I know it's a country where we need to cross-subsidize. The well-to-do need to fund the not-so-well-off. But the disparity is quite huge, and consequently, the lack of funds is definitely one of the issues. But even where we have funds, we tend to use it badly, and partly because of competence, partly because of corruption, etc. What can be done with that money is not invariably done. Yeah. Sorry, carry on. Oh, sorry, there's a follow-up, yeah.
Like, do you know of any structural steps that are being taken from the center, like from legislation that give more allocation to the actual cities and to address the problem that you just mentioned?
Yeah, so there are two things here. See, Bangalore has not had a city corporation. Once you have an elected corporation, there are two more sources of funds that get available to a city. There is something called the Central Finance Commission, which the central government gives directly to the elected body. If you don't have an elected body, that money does not come. So since we don't have an elected body for many years, that money has not come to this city, which will come once the elections are held. There's also something called the State Finance Commission. Even that money of the State Finance Commission directly coming to the corporation, that money will directly come to the corporation once you have the corporators elected. Therefore, the fund flow through central finance and state finance will marginally improve the situation, but still it is far from what is, we once made an estimate of how much it will require to fund Bangalore and what is the money that Bangalore is getting. And what we realized that Bangalore is getting 10% of the money it requires to fix Bangalore. Even if we made some rough estimates of what's required for water and what's required for roads and garbage and all that and the like. Somebody here wanted to ask something, yeah. I think it was about corruption.
So, you were talking about corruption. My question to you is, to what extent do you think corruption is affecting the amount of reinvestment Bangalore gets? Because as we know, corruption is a huge problem in Indian society. I mean, and not only with the higher up officials, but also with local police and, So my question to you is, to what extent does corruption affect the reinvestment into Bangalore? And what steps can we start taking to fix that? Because as from what I've observed, it's not really become much better.
So corruption is a live issue. In fact, there are many C's which are quite cancerous in this thing. There is an issue of C which is competence, there is a C which is lack of commitment, and corruption is definitely an issue. We shouldn't be denying that it is happening. But the way out of corruption, I will just share a story in something that I was involved in personally. So this was back in 2000 when something called the Bangalore Agenda Task Force was set up. And in fact, my transition from being an apathetic, not bothered about the city individual, to somebody who got engaged with the city happened in the year 2000, 26 years ago. So by chance, Nandan Nilekani was made the chairman of that task force, asked me whether I'd serve on it. I had no clue. I had zero clue as to how government worked. I did not know a single politician. And except my father-in-law who was a police officer, I did not know a single bureaucrat. But over the last 26 years, by just hands-on working in the system, one has tried to figure out as to why things happen the way they happen and what can we do about it. Because one thing is we can complain, and there are many reasons to complain, but my 26-year journey takeaway has been that it is possible to bring about change but it is one step at a time, and it is very difficult. It is non-trivial. So let me just share in the context of corruption. So there was something called property tax, and bear with me as I get into some little technicalities out there. So prior to 2000, the way property tax used to be determined, there used to be a revenue officer of the government. He will come to a hall like this, and he will say, this looks like Italian marble, that looks like fancy granite, something else, and oh, I see AC or something else. And he will levy a certain property tax. He will say the property tax for this room is 20,000 rupees. Now you need to pay 20,000. Now what the individual used to do is to say, oh my God, I can't give you 20,000. So the officer used to say, I can make it less, I can make it 10,000. I will show this not as Italian marble, I will show it as Kadapa stone. I will show this as something else. And he had the discretion, he or she had the discretion to show 10,000. So how much do you save? You save 10,000 rupees per year. In 5 years you save 50,000. So the officer will say, you give me half that money and I will put a lower tax for you. This was how it used to operate. The system that came in after 2000 was to remove the discretion in the hands of the officer. So what became something called the self-assessment scheme. The self-assessment scheme was, you were clearly told if this is your area and it is what is called a RCC, reinforced cement concrete building, and you are in Yamalur or you're in Indiranagar or you're in this thing, this is the rate you have to pay. So there is no discretion. You know the type of building, you know the area, and you know where you are, you pay the tax. So you remove the revenue officer coming and assessing and doing business. So the answer really, for example, the self-assessment scheme is an example that if you reduce discretion in the hands of the officer and you systematize and standardize a system which is common for everyone, it is possible to reduce corruption. Corruption will never go away. But like this, systematically in each area, you have to think. And today, with increasing technology, it is increasingly possible to start trying to fix these problems. There is a cultural issue. There are issues like somebody said about cops taking money and stuff like that. It will take time. But it is not impossible to start the fix. That's really the point on the corruption thing. Now let's take some of the common problems and let's try and see how we could potentially, why does this problem happen? And so we'll take some individual problems and then we'll come back to governance on the system on how it can be done. So let's first start with traffic. How many of you are okay with the way Bangalore's traffic is? Any hands going up? Nobody? Okay, so now let's try to deconstruct and find out, if you were to fix Bangalore's traffic, can somebody suggest how they would start thinking about fixing Bangalore's traffic? Anybody? Yeah.
They could widen the roads so that cars are able to like drive on more area than being forced to drive in one lane.
But suppose I told you that widening is not possible because of the bill and land acquisition is very expensive. So how do you solve if road widening is not possible?
Give it behind, Nimai, and then who's that way?
I would first think about
Arjun first. Arjun.
So maybe in a system like Singapore where there's a certain limited amount of cars that are allowed, so population is forced to use stuff like metro or like any public transport, and that will just solve the problem of too many cars on the road.
So you make an interesting point. I just want to dwell on it for a minute before we just move to the next person. So you are saying fewer cars is the answer. And do you know how Singapore reduces the number of cars? Do you have an idea?
No, they just have like if a car goes out of order, another one can come in.
No. So what Singapore does, the tax on the car, owning a car, is more expensive than the car. So the tax on the car is higher and they have a permit. Not more than so many cars can be there on the road. I just want you to think about a counter issue that people say at the highest level. They say that people have aspirations to own a car. Somebody starts with a cycle, goes to a bike and wants to own a car as progress and growth. Is it fair for us to stop that person from owning a car? I've heard this argument very often. So just think about it and let me know later, what is the answer to the fact about people who want to own cars? Do we stop them from owning is a dilemma. Just leaving that thought with you. Yeah.
Ranchi Sayuri. Then Ranchi.
So, I don't think that would essentially work, lowering the number of cars, because Bangalore is a city with a high population, right? So I don't think that would be very effective, first of all. And second of all, my solution would be to commercialize public transport more effectively, because right now the current state of public transport is not very good. People see it as dirty, unsafe, all the negatives. So I think a feasible solution that we can start implementing is honestly to help portray Bangalore's public transport as more feasible, and in general just a little more better for civilians to use.
Good.
Guys, faster sharing, quicker
I
sharing.
mean, like adding on to Nema's point, like in front of my community, the road is not like not wide enough that it's a problem. But I mean, cars keep parking on the side of the road, so it doesn't allow anyone to go anywhere. And then a big truck will come by, and then no one can go anywhere, and it takes you like half an hour to travel like 500 meters, which is like, I mean, extremely.
Got it. Roadside parking is leading to reduced road width, which also causes a traffic problem. Good point. Yeah, somebody there who's got the mic.
So they can like make the traffic rules stricter, so that if anyone breaks the traffic rule, then they have to pay a heavy fine.
So follow the rules of the land. How many of you have seen people driving two-wheelers on footpaths? Yeah, all of you have seen. What would you do in such a case? You move out of the way. I actually went to the police and said, why don't you book all these people with an intent to kill? If somebody walked around on the road with a gun, what would you think? You would think he wants to kill you? Yes or no? So similarly, if on a place meant for the pedestrian, if you have a motorist driving, isn't it an intention to kill? Anyway, it's food for thought in terms of bringing some rules and logic out there. Yeah, quickly, and then we will try quickly to go to the broad solution set.
Guys, where are the other mics? Hold the mic up, okay.
Yeah, who has got the mic gets to ask. Come on.
So I think that one of the major problems in like traffic is there's no gap between a village and a urbanizing city. Like you can see, Bangalore is in the middle of several like urban areas, and there's no like difference between like the village and the city, and it's like becoming a very important lane, and a lot of congestion is occurring. And US cities or like international cities would take one of two approaches, which would either to be embedding the village like into the city and urbanizing along with the village, or to like keep strict limits to keep the village the way it is. Like no tall buildings, like there should be a limit on the amount of buildings. But over here, this village is accommodating like 3 or 4 like floors on top of each other on like small narrow lanes, and I think that there's overpopulation.
It's an excellent point that you make. And essentially, in fact, just by way of data, you know, when there should be something called BMP 225 square kilometers that became 721 square kilometers of BBMP. At that time, they integrated 110 villages, including Yamalur. And it's a fact that a lot of the villages really never got integrated into the city. And neither did they remain a village, which would have been ideal, with low rise. Nor did they become, got integrated into the city with better roads. And it's a big part of our problem. So the part of the answer lies in whether you proactively do something and then bring it into the city, or ring fence it and say, in this area you will only, this is the carrying capacity and you will not go high rise, which does not allow it to carry the load. Next.
I had a question.
Yeah.
So I think you were right about the fear point. Like I had a similar view too. Like for example, if I walk onto the road and like about the garbage, if I throw something, I'm aware that nothing much is going to happen. So like it's a common mentality of people that they don't really care. So I think perhaps that's the problem of increasing garbage and overall lack of organization. That you were right that like what if there's someone holding a gun, then people they're scared enough to not do anything wrong. So perhaps that's one of the ways.
So let the police carry guns. Okay. One more and then I will try and wrap up the public transport traffic business.
So for the
Two more, yeah.
For the traffic thing, I think before we start thinking about solutions, the first thing is to understand where the traffic is, like which areas have the highest density, which areas have the highest footfall. Because it's not that in the entirety of Bangalore traffic is equally bad. There are some places where it's absolutely horrible, like in Whitefield where I live. Whereas if I go to Indranagar, it's relatively better. So it's to first, before I find solutions, I need to find the reason why it's happening. Need to find.
So can you tell me why Whitefield is having a problem?
Whitefield, from what I've seen, is that there is the population density there is extremely high. Like you have apartment complexes with 20 buildings, 20 floors, 10 houses in each floor. Each house has around 4 or 5 people. So the population density becomes quite high, and then there are too many people on the road. And the roads itself are quite narrow, so there's nowhere for us to go.
Because these were village roads, but I'll come with a potential solution for Whitefield. I will come back for that.
Whitefield also because of percolation of roads, right?
Pardon?
Percolation of roads itself.
Yes, there's a lot of this thing.
Not the same. Maya.
Yeah, so I was thinking that better law enforcement, because right now if someone runs a traffic light, there's a very small chance they actually have to pay a fine. So even though these rules exist, no one enforces it, so it encourages people to break the rules.
So there's no enforcement. One more and I think I'll try and catch this together. I will come back. You can have follow-up once I try and mention something.
Yeah, I think they're not using proper use of GPS, because if you use it properly, they're able to tell who's going in the wrong side of the road, who's like U-turning where you're not supposed to, and I think this can stop a lot of the traffic issues, because it also leads to accidents and stuff. So I think they should use better use of the GPS.
Use GPS and technology, and provided they enforce the rules. Okay, one last one and then we will.
So in UK they use these ringabouts instead of traffic lights, which significantly reduces the traffic. Why can't we implement these in India?
Actually, roundabouts overseas work very well, but that's because people respect the order of who gets priority. As you turn, there's a logic that the person who's coming from the other side gets priority over you. It's something that India has not even remotely got around to addressing. But roundabout is definitely part of the solution. But it works if the overall vehicular density is a lot less than what we are encountering out here. Okay, now let me just try and wrap up so that you get a sense of how to think about it. So if we take the issue of traffic, I'll start with the first thing really is, yes, we need to know why the problem is happening, which is really data, what really causes traffic. And there are many, many reasons. We have multi-modes. We have from bullock carts to cycle to motorcycles to auto rickshaw to cars, and of course public transport. There's a whole lot of multimodal. We do not have enough road width. When we have a road, we have footpath, we have potholes. When a traffic signal clears, the maximum potholes are at the traffic junction, so that the number of vehicles evacuated when the traffic signal changes is less, because they have to navigate the pothole and the traffic signal. I could go on, there are a whole lot of problems. But if you want to start fixing these issues, the start point of this is really to have a guiding principle which will guide your thinking when it comes to fixing a problem. You obviously collect the data. Data is king and queen. So you need data to really decide. Somebody mentioned about more congested areas, less congested areas and the like is important. What do you think can be the guiding principle if I want to solve a problem called traffic? What would be the core guiding principle to fix something like traffic? Anybody? You understand what's a guiding principle? Something that says, hey, am I doing this right in this manner? Yeah.
Like nowadays, some people get their license without giving a driving test, or something like that. But if they do it like you have to give a driving test to get a license, and without giving it, you can't like illegally get a license. Then people will drive in a more better.
So basically, the ability that you should have a proper driving test is, but that's more what I would say a mechanism on the thing. It's not really the guiding. Okay, guiding principle could be that somebody who doesn't have a license and a proper license should not drive. But there's a very fundamental guiding principle if you want to fix traffic. Yeah.
Patience, but I don't think a lot of the population in Bangalore can actually have patience, because they're like, a lot of us are impoverished. I mean, not us, but like people are impoverished. They're driving taxis, they're paid by the hour, and their priority is not to account for the traffic, it's to account for how many cars.
So the guiding principle is really develop patience, meditate.
Yes.
I'm not sure that's going to fix it, but I mean, you make a point that you're basically saying you'll have to come to terms with what it is. Yeah, you have a guiding principle, and then I will go with what the guiding principle should be, and you can tell me whether it resonates or does not. Yeah, you raised your hand there. Quickly.
Maybe a guiding principle can be make public transport better and like incentivize the people to use public transport. Already India has like good public transport compared to America and all, and if we really try and focus on that, then maybe more people will use public transport.
That's a great point. We're getting towards the guiding principle. Anybody else wants to amplify on that? I think here and then.
I think one big issue is that Karnataka, before mainly being a more village kind of area, established Bangalore as its main city after IT hubs and all arrived here. And so most of the people who live in Bangalore and work here end up in IT sectors. And because of that, most of the population leaves and comes to work at the same time. So around 4 o'clock, there are a lot of office cabs, office people going back and coming back, and a lot of school buses leave during that time. So that I think also causes a pretty big traffic jam.
So you would stagger the timings, etc. to solve it.
Like distribute it a bit more across the day.
See, the guiding principle, to go back to the public transport point, the guiding principle is the focus of the planners needs to be to move more people per minute over moving more vehicles per minute. You get what I'm trying to say? If the guiding principle is what will move more people in a throughput. Now, if all of you came to school in cars versus you're coming in bus, which do you think is going to cause more traffic? Cars. That is because there are too many vehicles on the road. Each vehicle has one passenger, all of them trying to use the same road thing. The same thing in a bus, where 40 people come in a bus. It takes a similar, slightly more space than a car, but 40 people are coming through in it. So fundamentally, there is no solution for traffic but adopting public transport on scale. Public transport on scale, because the guiding principle is focus on moving people, not on moving vehicles. So that is really how to think about it. Now, when you start thinking down this route, you will do more investments in the metro, you will do more investment in buses, you will do more investment in shared rides, you will do more investment even in the autos and the Ubers of the world, because the asset is being utilized much better. They do 5 or 7 turns, as opposed to a private vehicle owner who takes the car out, goes to their office, spends the day there, and drives back home in the evening. So anything which gives you shared mobility, mass mobility, is the starting point to fix traffic. There is no way you can fix traffic by just saying that you keep buying them vehicles. I am not saying that cars don't have a right of way or two-wheelers don't have a right of way. They will get. But you need to be clear about the hierarchy of what this is about. Does this make sense? Moving people over moving vehicles as the guiding principle. Yeah, sorry.
I mean, that's a good solution, but a lot of the traffic nowadays is caused because of, as someone mentioned earlier, a lot of these delivery people, because so many apps like Blinkit and Swiggy, Instamart pressure delivery people to
deliver within a very short time frame, so they're cutting traffic rules. And like, do you think
it is part of the problem, and it's a fact that you do see a fair amount of the Blinkit and the 10-minute delivery people going the wrong way because they have incentives linked to that. It is definitely part of the problem, but it is not the whole problem. There are many. In fact, the question of rule of law, we actually break laws with impunity because we think we can get away with it. The person who jumps a red signal, which are invariably people in cars and two-wheelers, are also contributing to the traffic because there is a certain pattern that is to be there. So the person who jumps a red signal is as culpable as the person who goes the wrong way. I mean, the person who goes the wrong way is even more dangerous because you don't expect the person to come the other side. So there is no one fix that can fix. There's no magic wand that will fix. You need to work on multiple levels. And it also requires a lot of behavioral change. You see, when we go overseas, I'm sure all of you, when you go overseas, have you jumped into a bus and moved around? Can I see a show of hands? How many of you have traveled by public transport when you go overseas? Because you inherently find it welcoming, you find it convenient, you find it works. Here how many of you here take a normal public transport and move around? Very limited. So you have the answer out there.
Yeah, but don't you think that even if you do enforce really heavy traffic laws, won't it just put these people in even more of a jeopardy because they still have to deliver quickly? They just
see on the 10-minute app. I am not saying it is problematic, but it requires a different response. According to me, the company has to be charged every time, not the individual delivery operator, because he or she is incentivized and their incentive depends on it. So every time you catch a Blinkit person, levy a fine on Blinkit, and if 50 such instances happen, ban Blinkit from operation. That is possibly the way to think about it. Very quickly, I want to share with you a great interesting example of the aspect of behavioral change. How do you get people into buses? How do you get people into metros? How do you get people into public transport? There was an extremely interesting example, which is a success story in the world, in a place called Bogota. How many of you have heard of Bogota? Any idea where it is? Colombia. You know, Colombia, you have other associations with Colombia, but Bogota is one of the best managed cities. And Bogota actually has what's called the bus rapid transport system. And the mayor of Bogota, he did something very, very interesting to get people onto the buses. They had a similar problem like Bangalore. Incidentally, Bogota has a population of 8 million. We have 14 million now. So it's a comparable size of Bangalore. He needed to get people into these buses and it was not happening. So what he did was a very interesting experiment in a few pockets of the city where there were schools. He told the school children that after your school is over between 4 and 5 p.m., I am allowing you to play football on the streets of Bogota. In front of your school, I am giving you this place to play football. And he told them with only one condition. If you see a bus coming, stop the game to allow the bus to go through. If you see cars coming, continue to play the game. So as they did this, after a period of time, people said, oh my God, I'm going that side, the children will be playing football. It's better I take the bus rather than take the car while I go there. So they started taking the bus. And when they took the bus, they were pleasantly surprised that the bus was a pleasant experience. And they said, hey, I could do this more often. And therefore you had behavioral change on scale, where the mayor of Bogota used school children and giving them permission to play football on the streets after school as a way to get the population to realize that buses is the way to go and not private vehicles. So very, very interesting actual case study. Bogota, incidentally, because I'm also a great believer in public spaces, they have something called cyclovia. So every Sunday, out of a population of 8 million, roughly 2 million people come onto the streets of Bogota to celebrate the city. And what they do is all their roads, one half of the road is thrown open to the citizens without vehicle. And the other half is for vehicles to keep going on a two-way thing. So you shrink the vehicle lane by half. And cyclovia is one of the most successful citywide experiments of 1/4 of the city coming and playing on the city roads without a worry. I mean, we have tried to show all these examples to our leaders out here, but they say it's possible there but not possible here. But that's a story for another day. Okay, so that's very quickly about public transport. Let's take something like, somebody raised the issue of potholes. Why does potholes happen? Yeah. Take a mic.
They lay the tar road and then they don't take off the old road before they put the new ones, so it doesn't stick properly and keeps peeling off as people drive on it.
So basically, you need to mill the road before you repair the road. It's a good point, it's a good engineering technical point. There is fundamentally something more basic at play out here. Yeah.
So I think corruption also leads to tenders being given to companies which do shoddy road work. This also leads to potholes.
That is also correct. I would totally agree with that. Next. We have two more people here, then let's get on with potholes.
Stagnant water, like puddles.
So that's the start point. You see, asphalt and water do not mix. Today's puddle is tomorrow's pothole. Today's puddle is tomorrow's pothole. So if you see a puddle today, you can be sure in another week or 2 weeks, there will be a full-blown pothole. So you have to make sure that puddles do not form. So therefore, to make sure puddles do not form, there's what's called the camber on the road. You know, you need to have a road geometry which makes sure that the water drains to the side. Now the problem in Bangalore is, even if you designed a road with the water to go to the side, the drains on the side in many places are not built. The roadside drains do not exist. So even though you may have the water going to the side, if you don't have a drain for removing the water will come back and form the puddle. So one of our core problems really here is that we need to do this road engineering properly. What is stopping us from doing it? There is a huge business industry in pothole filling. Repeated pothole filling is a full business activity. And that is a big part of the problem, because when there's an industry which depends on filling potholes, there is no incentive to have a zero pothole road. So it gets a little more complex, which somebody there raised the issue about corruption and leakages, etc. All that are part of the problem. Today, you leave Bangalore and you go to the highway, you will find the roads are extremely motorable. It's only in the city that we find this particular problem. So to fix this problem, I wish I had a guiding principle, but to my mind, the starting point of this is to really look at your entire drain network and re-look at the roads. I'm not a big fan of these white topping roads that are happening. They're environmentally not the best of roads. They're not good for your tires. They create a lot of dust, which leads to air pollution. Actually, asphalt roads are actually the better ones, provided you design them properly. Somebody wanted to say something on potholes, or shall we move on?
Connecting to the corruption point, because companies get paid on how many potholes they fill. If they poorly make the potholes, if they poorly fill it and poorly make the roads, and it ended up breaking like in another few months, then they keep getting paid more because they need to go ahead and fill more roads. So that just,
yeah, it is a self-imposed, it is unfortunate reality. It is part of the problem. Yeah.
It's not regarding potholes, but specifically talking about roads, there was a renovation of which came back some time ago, known as plastic roads, which lasted for many years, and it was relatively well resistant. It not only did it create long plastic roads, but it also reduced the amount of garbage disposal, and it was much cheaper than regular roads. Why is this not being implemented?
So actually there are parts where it is being implemented. It is possible to use 10 to 12% plastic pellets along with asphalt, and as you rightly said, it is a reuse of the plastics, as well as reduces the amount of asphalt that you need. It is definitely part of the way ahead, and it would be fair to say about 5 to 10% of the roads are being made this way. Why is it not being scaled up? The answer goes back to what some of the other people have been saying. that the incentive mechanism to do that is not there. I want to move from roads to the idea of somebody mentioned pedestrians. And we spoke about St. Mark's Road and some of those roads. You see, there's another guiding principle when it comes to these things. You need to have a clarity as to who is your customer. Who do you think should be the primary customer on the roads? On our roads, who do you think is the most vulnerable person on the road? And do you think we design our roads around the most vulnerable person? So the question that I wish to pose is, the essence of a civilized society is taking care of the most vulnerable. So you need to design roads with the pedestrian at the heart of it and not the motorist at the heart of it. So we have something called the tender sure roads in our city, which came in about 15 years ago. No big rocket science, everything overseas is built on that principle. It basically had a hierarchy of road users. So you had the pedestrian as the most important, followed by the cyclist, followed by public transport, followed by the two-wheeler, followed by the car owner. So essentially, when you design a road, you design making sure it is in favor of the pedestrian, which means footpaths are a must. Parking on footpaths is a no-no. Therefore, the guiding principle that we need to do is that if we build our city for the most vulnerable people, automatically the rest of the city, it will work for the better off people. So we need to plan for the most vulnerable people, and the vulnerable people do not need to be only poor people. How many of you live in Epsilon? Anybody? A few? Do you remember the time Epsilon got flooded? You remember?
There are not many Epsilon people.
Not many Epsilon people. Do you remember some of the flooding that takes place of low-lying areas? Flooding affects rich people, poor people, every people.
Divishri, they will all remember.
Divishri, they will remember. So the question here really is, this thing about flooding, because earlier we had a quick chat about flooding. Just I want to leave a quick point for you. Why do you think flooding happens? We have a very ironical situation. We have both flooding and water shortage, often in quick succession. Yeah, somebody there raised their hand. You wanted to say something?
I think it's because of the inadequate drainage systems, especially in low-lying areas where it's more likely to be flooded. Mainly the infrastructure, the growth of infrastructure is not as much as we expect it to be, and therefore it's causing a lot of flooding.
Definitely one of the points. Yeah, somebody there raised their hand. Two of them.
I think flooding also happens because there aren't many drainage systems on the roads. That's why the water can't go anywhere but be soaked by the roads. So that's why flooding also happens.
Sure. Anybody else on flooding?
I believe that the reason that flooding occurs and the reason we're facing like a shortage of water at the same time is because we don't have any storage facilities that help us store water. So whenever it rains, and obviously a lot of our buildings are made on lake beds, so when it rains it usually collects in the lake beds because that's really the natural way it usually happens. But we don't, but due to the lack of storage facilities, then the flooding occurs, and then we get a shortage of water. So that really impacts everything. So like apartment complexes and stuff, flooding happens into like basements when there's like a slope downwards, the water flows there. So after the Vishi got flooded, what they did was they put like a massive speed bump over there so that the water didn't flow inside the slope.
But what if the water level is higher than that speed hump? It will still become the reservoir again.
Yeah, so that's another problem.
So very quickly, just a complicated issue of flooding. There are a combination of reasons that flooding happens. Clearly, inadequate drainage system. Many of our drains don't get desilted. They don't get desilted. many of our stormwater drains that we have got ideally should not have been concretized as the bottom. Because when you concretize the stormwater drain, the message that you're giving is let it rain in the higher areas, and we will transport the water to the low-lying areas faster because it's concretized. If that same thing was spongy, if it was soft soil, a lot of the water would get slowed down. Some of it would get charged in the local areas so that it would get delayed coming to the lower areas. So the way we do our stormwater drains are problematic. The desilting does not happen, inadequate drainage. But there is a fundamentally more important engineering problem you should be aware of that we have as a country. So if you look at our engineering textbooks, they all say we need to design stormwater drains assuming 75 millimeters per hour peak rainfall. So there's a concept of peak rainfall. The same rainfall spread over the day, not a problem. That rainfall coming in a short interval, very, very big problem. So what we saw last week in Bangalore was 110 millimeters of rainfall in central Bangalore that fell in something like 45 minutes. In 45 minutes, you had a cloud burst, which almost works out to 120, 130 millimeters per hour. Now, we have design standards which say 75 millimeters per hour. Because of our competence, corruption, everything put together, the delivered peak hour design is something like 50 millimeters per hour. Now, if you look at the data for Bangalore for the last 2-3 decades with climate change and everything else, the peak rainfall in Bangalore is 125 millimeters per hour. So we have an actual situation of peak rainfall of 125 millimeters per hour, while our systems are barely designed to take care of 50 millimeters per hour peak rainfall. So whenever you're going to have 75-100 millimeters per hour peak rainfall in any area, that area is going to collapse. There is nothing that can stop it today because inherently the design is flawed, and we can at best plan for resilience measures. How do we bounce back from that? But the ability of the system to take that is low. So this is something to just keep in mind, that we need to change our thinking and standards as new data evolves in the marketplace. When you realize that climate change is causing more peak rainfall, we need to go back and relook at our design standards and say, what do I need to do to mitigate future climate change? So this is, of course, as you grow up and as you go through college and start thinking as a planner, the point really here is we need to think about the future and not be in denial about what we are seeing around us. Here a lot of people are in denial, saying that, in fact, at the highest level, some people believe climate change is not a big issue, but it is. And the data shows the climate weirding that's happening. Quick related point about water shortage is, you know, we had such a big rainfall, but 90% of the rainfall just went wasted because we are over-concretized as a city, and there is now a new thinking that we need to be more and more a sponge city. We need to have more areas where the groundwater can get recharged. More, you know, there's a million well program in Bangalore. A person called Vishwanath runs it. He is saying that Bangalore could do with 1 million wells, so that when this rain comes, we marshal the water, and if we get this kind of aquifer recharge, almost 40-45% of Bangalore's needs can be met from there. You will not need further Kaveri or Mekadattu or some other water supply. But it requires you to think, saying that how do we harness excessive rain to do this? I want to move to the last subject here which came up in the discussion, which is garbage. I want a guiding principle on how do we fix the garbage problem. We discussed analysis, people gave some issues as to why garbage is there, black spots are there, people throwing things and the like. Anybody can think about what is the path to fix the garbage issue?
Firstly, I feel the main point is applying consequences, because I've seen on the walls they say like don't throw garbage, 5,000 rupees fine if caught. But where's the camera? Where's the ability to catch? people know there's nothing, so they'll just throw, knowing that they'll escape from the consequence. So if we as Bangalore really want to like not have any trash, we need to like implement the consequence.
Yeah, I think I have the same point. I think we need to incentivize people to take responsibility, and we need to build in a culture where people like know that it's their responsibility, not someone else can deal with this. Everyone has to take some part in the issue.
Yeah, so I feel the problem is that it's mainly based on convenience, that you feel that it's like really easy that suppose you finish eating something and the wrapper, it's just like easy to just like discard it or chuck it on the road. So we need to like the solution has to be to encourage people and make them believe that because you're just chucking garbage on the road, the system's getting destroyed, it's causing pollution, and it's basically affecting your lifestyle.
Yeah, I think with the introduction of AI technology that is advancing, I think what every community should do is dedicate like cameras on the road which have AI technology in order to track whether people are polluting, and because they write 5,000 rupee fine, but where is the fine? No one is going to fine them. That's the issue. So I feel like with the advancement of AI technology, this would be a good solution.
We might benefit from developing a different kind of culture than what you described in Tokyo. Having no garbage bins at all might provoke people to pollute more. But Bangalore or Indian society in general might benefit from other schemes where we make garbage bins more accessible and incentivize recycling and not pollution, and probably more schemes to first clear up the pollution we have and then show people what they would miss if they continue polluting. So we need to incentivize, because it's too late to develop a very sincere work culture that you see abroad. We have to work with what we have, and we might benefit from something a little bit more rudimentary.
So all this, so people have been talking about, people throwing fine. I mean, what about at source? What do you think, where does the garbage starts getting created, and how do we start treating the garbage from source? Can somebody go down that route?
That was a design thinking person. Here is now an engineer.
So I feel like connecting to the source thing, one of the main things, as he mentioned, was about the culture, the civic sense that we have. The generation of garbage is, of course, going to be there because we have such a high population and high population density. But disposal and incentive, more advocacy for figuring out how to dispose of is kind of the essence in this.
And what would your suggestion there be? How to dispose?
First of all, the system itself needs to be more closely and thoroughly examined to figure out how to actually viably collect and dispose of garbage from all over the city. And it would take a while. It needs to be analyzed in depth.
Somebody there has raised their hand. I'm still seeking a guiding principle.
Since industries mostly make products out of plastic, that's why when some people have a habit of throwing the garbage out of the window, the plastic does not decompose and it cannot be useful for the environment. Instead, people can use biodegradable products, which, even if thrown out of the window, they help you help the environment basically.
So one thing that I've noticed, like not only in Bangalore but all around, is that there'll be a trash can right there, but people will like not throw it inside the trash can, it'll be around the trash can.
So trash can is not the answer in your view?
Yeah, it's not the answer, but what I have noticed that has worked, if you look at Bandipur and Kabini, I know they're national parks, but you can collect trash and exchange it for money, like per bottle, I think it's like 5 rupees or something like that. That's a good incentive, and if you like modify it a little bit, that you can implement it in Bangalore?
Yes, somebody here, she's raised her hand.
I want to draw it to a close after this, but I want to get a closure from you.
I'll get just the last one, I'll finish the garbage and thing.
Also, there's one road which I drive by really often. So there's this painting with like freedom fighters painted on the wall, and it's very beautiful. And you can see there's no garbage on the walls at all. And then 500 meters later, where just normal walls, you can see literally garbage being thrown.
Of God pictures and all.
Yeah, so I think when people consider something special or consider something like close to them, they don't literally keep it sacredly. And this also happens overseas. When we travel overseas, we see as something special, something we shouldn't ruin, and we don't litter. But in Bangalore, especially in India, like littering has been so normalized, we just don't think twice before we do it.
We are out of time, so I just wrap up, I think, because we need some more closing things. So I'm sorry for the 2 or 3 hands that went up. Very quickly on garbage. How many of you have heard this saying, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas? Anybody, can I see a show of hands? My God, a lot of guys are quite knowledgeable about Vegas. So the thing about really, the essence of the principle to fix garbage is my garbage needs to be fixed in my locality. Local decentralization is the answer. And it starts with segregation at source. I didn't see anybody mention segregation. Without segregation, just like without public transport, there is no solution for transport. There is no solution for garbage without segregating at source. Dry waste, wet waste, medical waste, hazardous waste, and various kinds of waste. If you do not, how many of the households here believe that they segregate waste? Reasonably number. Now you know what happens when you give your waste to your contractor, and this is where the other issue comes about corruption and business incentives. We often find that the contractor in the vehicle is mixing the waste even though we have segregated the waste. In fact, I have heard people say, why should I segregate? Because that person mixes it anyway. The reason the person mixes it is, today most of our contractors in garbage are transport contractors. They get paid by carrying a lot of garbage over long distances to a landfill and the like, which is a totally wrong model. And as a result, they do not want segregation to succeed. If we want to fix Bangalore's waste problem, unless we work on behavioral change and subsequent chain of segregating at source, and 80 to 90% of the waste needs to be sorted and processed in the locality. That is, you mentioned earlier about pyrolysis, etc. So there are a whole lot of techniques and technologies that are available, organic waste converters. But the journey starts with segregation at source and the community insisting that they be processed in that neighborhood. Today the biggest crime that we are all committing in Bangalore, a city of 14 million, all of us are blind to one fact, that our waste is going and being thrown in villages of about 5,000 people, quarries near their villages, where we are contaminating their groundwater for the next 100 years. So city of 14 million are not bothered that maybe 7 to 8 villages of 5,000 people each, their life forever is being changed purely because we are being totally irresponsible and not thinking about what it is doing to their groundwater, to their environment by shipping across our entire waste out of sight, out of mind. So there is a moral hazard here in something to think about. It is imperative that we find solutions for garbage which are decentralized and local in that particular area. Now Kavita, please stand and ask.
Yeah, thank you. So I think this has been a wonderful discussion. I think the whole idea of getting them to think about a guiding principle and not necessarily a solution, I think that's a very good thought exercise for them. Now, because we are sitting here and having conversations about this, it means to some extent that we are conscious about these issues. And I would like to take it back to what you said about joining Bangalore Action Task Force. You said you had empathy, right? And I think a lot of us are in that situation because these problems are somewhat easy to get away with it. So maybe why don't you share with us what is it that transformed you? How did in particular the community around you push you to be more conscious of it and work towards it?
See, I was a case who got lucky. I'm an outlier. So, back in 2000, as I said, I became a Bangalore Agenda Task Force member. And just 1 month working with government personally gave me more satisfaction than 20 years of my consulting business. So I suddenly realized that if you could make change in government on any aspect which can affect a larger mass of people, that was my motivation to change. But what I realized in the journey and the process, so for me I was fortunate, privileged, in a position to spend 26 years doing this without bothering too much about having to earn a living or whatever. But the more important thing in this journey, what I realized, that there are lots of individuals who make change one at a time. It is not necessary that you have to work with government to bring about change at scale. So I'll give you 1 or 2 quick examples that I came across. Back in 2000, you'll notice that some parts of the city has one-way traffic only, it doesn't have two-way traffic. Its genesis lies in 2000, where 3 individuals, ordinary individuals whom you would not notice on the road, they spent 6 months standing in 110 junctions of the city observing the traffic flow. And by observing the traffic flow, these 3 citizens who are not trained, nothing, they came up with a solution that if we actually made a one-way traffic movement along this direction near the Kandirwa Stadium, all those things, JC Road, you could actually improve the overall traffic flow. So one of the major initiatives in Bangalore that has been introduced of the one-way traffic plan came because 3 individuals without any training spent 6 months in their spare time studying traffic, coming up with a solution and going to the police and saying, hey, this is a way to do it. So the power of being able to make a change does not have to come because I am in a government department or in a government task force, but it is possible for ordinary individuals to actually go out and do this. People often say, what's the point of voting because my vote is not going to make a difference. Totally wrong. People's vote makes a huge difference. In fact, we elect somebody, we must stay with the same alphabet E and we must engage with the system after we elect. We cannot elect and forget saying that the elected person is going to do the needful. Unless we stay engaged, the price of democracy is eternal vigilance. The moment we stop being vigilant about what we need to get, the system and the place will go from bad to worse. We have no idea of how fortunate we are at this point of time. Just think of people who are, in fact, my Slovenian ambassador had come and his last posting for the last 5 years was in Ukraine. And he was explaining to me what it was to live under a war situation in Kyiv, in Ukraine on a day-to-day basis. There are people in the Middle East who are caught up in Sudan, various areas. We are extremely privileged and lucky to lead what we can call normal life and have the kind of problems that we are talking about. But it is very easy to lose it. It is very easy to lose it if you're not vigilant, if you're not engaged. If you leave it for the other person to do something and say, I am not the problem, somebody else needs to do it, it's not going to happen. Each of us in our own way, it can be in respect of our local park, it can be in respect of a local street light that is not working, it can be about anything that we notice. It is, the onus is on each of us to basically take that move to say this can be made differently. The power of individuals to bring change on scale is huge and proven through history. Yes, sir.
So thank you so much for your guidance. I'm sure all of these things our students know, putting garbage in the garbage trash can and segregation of waste. But at times, we lose the basic, sometimes the basic civic sense. We just, out of ignorance, we miss upon a few things. And we all know we want to learn from all of these developed countries, and India is a developing country, and we want to imbibe their models over here. But then there is lack of ownership and accountability. And I'm sure you have also gone through a lot of bureaucratic blocks, and whenever you're trying to implement or bring a change, because a small change can bring a huge difference. So all of those roadblocks you must have come across. So, any experience you would like to share from your personal journey and what challenges you face?
I have 26 years of, I call myself the patron saint of lost causes. The key thing really is, I don't get disheartened. I believe in having a positive attitude. There are 99 reasons to throw in the towel and say, forget it, this place is not fixable. But you have to look for that one reason where change is possible. That's really been my own guiding compass. Because when you work with government, it's fair to say that 99 of my ideas have not got accepted by government. A few have, something in property tax, something regarding pedestrian and footpaths, something related to Lal Bagh sustainability, something related to splitting the city into 5 corporations, maybe 4 things in 26 years. Now that doesn't look like a great success record. But the key learning that I've had in this really is, there are well-meaning people everywhere, but everybody is caught up in a fairly dysfunctional setup. So the systemic problems are many, and we need to uncouple the systemic problems and start fixing them one at a time. But the main thing is what I've really realized in this space is to keep the faith, to keep hope. There are many reasons to throw in the towel saying, it doesn't really affect me, I have ways to deal with this. But the reason is to find a way and to forge ahead. I keep saying I have this, in a laptop, you have what's called the hard disk memory and the computer RAM memory. So I have really got a RAM memory. So when I open my laptop and on, the RAM memory starts with an empty slate. It is ready to take the instructions of the day. The hard disk memory has the memory of the past. So I believe in basically saying that take each fresh day as saying something. There is a learning from the past, but approach each day as another day where change can happen is basically been something that has been propelling me. And personally, when I found that it was very difficult to get things done through government, success rates are low and lead times are long, I actually pivoted. We have never spoken about that. I pivoted to the arts and culture world. I'm involved in something called the Bangalore International Center, a place called Sabha, Bangalore Literature Festival, and Bangalore Hapa. So I said I will also do work in areas where I don't depend on government. Government can be an enabler, but it is more private initiative for public good, so that you are more in control of your destiny. So for my own sanity, I have a mix of working with government, which is reasonably frustrating, and a life in arts and culture, which is hugely rewarding.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Ravi. I'm just going to ask the kids to do something. We're going to also request you to come back for part 2 of this talk, because we don't have solutions. Kids often get very discouraged because they think of these problems are so much larger and so complex to fix. And we've even taken up that Bengaluru, the lake, Bengaluru lake. So a whole bunch of kids also wrote that, Miss Kavita wants to do it, but it's very impossible to do. But let's hang in there and let's see what we can do. But a whole bunch of kids also got out of it, saying that, this is impossible, can't do it, right? So I think, and it shouldn't be children who have to figure out the solutions to these massive problems. But I think there can be a step of engagement with the kids. So homework for you guys. For tomorrow morning in the class, form tutors will have to decide on one single color of post-it for their section and class, and each one of you will go home. You will think of all the solutions that you have spoken about today, many solutions to things, and pick one that you think is most important to you. List down 3-4 of them first, then put one single one on a post-it, bring it to your class tomorrow morning and share it. Your form tutors will share it with us. There will be a step 2 and a step 3 to this, but please bring back step 1. Is everyone clear? Can someone tell me what you're doing? Big voice. Gayatri? Big voice. Big voice. Quick.
Out of the discussion today, write down at least one solution that you found in the post-it, and
yeah, first you write many that you like, Write one, finally. Choose one that you bring on a post-it. You can sketch it, you can write it, you can do anything, but you will bring it on the post-it because there's going to be a step 2 and step 3. Abhi, Arav, everyone's clear? Okay, great. So that's what you will do, and we will come back to you for step 2.
But one last story, because she mentioned Bengaluru and we spoke about Singapore. It's a very interesting story of how Singapore became Singapore, apart from rules, etc. You know, about 40-50 years ago, the Singapore River was worse than Bengaluru Lake, more toxic than Bengaluru Lake. What the government did was take a simple guiding principle for Singapore. Actually, it ended up being for Singapore. They took a visionary statement saying, one day our people will swim in Singapore River. Everybody laughed because Singapore River was so toxic. Nobody could imagine that you could swim in Singapore River. Post that, every decision the government took, they said that does this decision help swimming in the river or not? If it helped swimming in the river or did not affect swimming in the river, the project could continue. If it affected swimming in the river, the project was not allowed. So systematically, by just having a simple vision and a yardstick, my decision-making yardstick is, does it help a person swim in the river? Singapore has become Singapore. There were other factors about rule of law, penalty, disincentives. I'm not simplifying it, but it started with a simple vision, saying one day we will swim in our rivers. So there is no reason to think why we can't swim in Bengaluru Lake either.
Thank you. Thanks, and we're going to come back to you for part 2, which is solution. Thank you so much. Most interactive session ever.
Thank you. I hope you liked it because there was a session planned. I cancelled all that and just went straight away to talking to you. I hope you liked it. Thank you.
We'll just conclude with the vote of thanks, and then row by row we can all exit to the class. First of all, thank you so much, sir. I think what we are generally looking at in Ideas at NEEP is this kind of engagement which you brought in, and I'm very glad that plan got cancelled. Ideally, this is how it should happen. I think what we can take away from this, besides a lot of problems that we identified, is that a lot of it also has to depend on our choices and actions, the kind of trade-offs that we make. From your speech, I gather that a lot of urban problems, your immediate question was, but then if we need this or not, right? So it tells us that a lot of good that we want, development that we want, also have the kind of trade-offs there are. And also, I think the biggest takeaway is that individuals are agents of change. And I believe over a period of time, we would build the kind of community that is required to encourage these individuals. Thank you once again. Can we have just one round of applause? Okay, students, we are going to leave row by row in a line. Teachers, can we just have them accompanied out of this hall? First row.
Bro, even I did. If I played against Portland, we won 14. If I played against them, I would have got 10.